The Haunted Farm. Today's story, my dear friend, is unlike any other we've heard. A very strange crime, so much so that it happened in 1922 and was investigated again in 2007. It's one of the most puzzling and mysterious crimes in Germany's history because an entire family died and was buried in a way stranger than fiction. Was the killer that skilled at the time? Or was it some supernatural force, a being not of this world? Let's find out together. There was a farm in northern Munich, in an area somewhat isolated from the city, where the Gruber family lived. On the farm, there was the father Andreas, mother Azalia, daughter Victoria along with her daughter, and Victoria's two brothers, also fully grown. They lived quietly and peacefully, my friend, until the winter of 1921, when the story began with strange occurrences happening at the farm. It all started with the maid who lived with them. She was the first to notice these strange things because, my friend, she was alone in the house most of the time while the family worked on the farm outside. One day, she heard a knocking sound coming from the wall. When she got closer, she realized the sound was coming from inside the wall itself, not from someone knocking on it. She kept trying to find the source of the noise, but found nothing. The sound continued, and after a while, she started hearing voices from one of the rooms upstairs. She got scared and ran to Andreas, telling him that someone was inside the house in the upstairs room. Andreas was puzzled, as he hadn't noticed anyone entering or leaving the farm. He went with her to check, but when he reached the room, there was no one there. To be more certain, he searched for any signs of a break-in or anything that would indicate someone had entered the house, but he found nothing. Days went by, and the maid continued to hear these noises every day. When she tried to sleep, the noise intensified, and she felt like someone was watching her. Every time she told Andreas about it, he would check again but find nothing. Eventually, after losing hope, the maid told the family she wouldn't stay in the house any longer because she couldn't sleep, and she was sure about what she was hearing, even though no one believed her. And so she left. This raised Andreas's suspicions even more. The maid, who had been working with them for years, left because of this. He decided to set up recording devices to verify if the noises were real. Instead, when he listened to the recordings, he heard footsteps in the room. Andreas told his family about it, and they searched the entire farm but found no evidence of anyone's presence. They agreed that the sound must have been just their imagination, and that they should focus on their work and forget about it. Days went by uneventfully until they noticed some items missing from the house. The most significant of these items, my friend, was the house key, which had never been removed from the door before. They started searching for the missing items, and when they couldn't find them, they began to feel anxious. They discussed the strange noises they had heard, trying to find an explanation, but there was no evidence that anyone had entered the farm. One night, their granddaughter went missing. They ran around like mad, searching for her and calling out in the forest. After a while, they found her. When they asked her how she ended up there and what had happened, she remembered nothing. She told them she had no idea how she left the house or how she got there. They brought her back home, and to their surprise, they found a newspaper they had never seen before. They were not subscribed to any newspaper delivery service, and no one in their area was even interested in reading newspapers. 2 days later, they found that someone had tried to break into the tool shed attached to the house. They found the lock had been broken, but the strange thing was that no one had heard the sound of the lock being broken, even though they were all always at home and could easily hear any sound. The family's worry grew, and they tried to connect the events, but without any conclusion, since there was no evidence that someone was entering and leaving the house. days went by until one morning, in March 1922, Andreas completely lost his mind. He woke up early and went to the front door, where he found footprints leading into the house. The strangest part was that there were no footprints leading out, meaning someone had entered but never left. Andreas rushed to wake up the entire family and asked them about it. They were shocked and told him no one had left the house since the previous day. He inspected the other doors, thinking that this person might have left through a different door, but he found no trace of anyone leaving. Losing his sanity, Andreas began following the footprints from the house into the forest, but the footprints disappeared in the middle of the woods. He returned to the house and searched again, but found no sign of an intruder. Again, feeling like he was losing his mind, Andreas decided to visit his neighbor Lorenz, who lived on a nearby farm. He told Lorenz everything that had been happening. Lorenz suggested giving Andreas a gun to keep just in case. Andreas considered the offer, but decided not to take the firearm, telling Lorenz to forget about everything, that it would be fine, and that maybe it was just his imagination from exhaustion and overwork. 2 days later, they managed to hire another maid to help around the house. On March 31st, 1922, the new maid arrived and started working. 4 days after this, a man came to service a machine at the farm. He knocked on the front door, but no one answered. Although he could hear the dog barking and see lights on inside, assuming that the family was either busy or had left and forgotten to turn off the lights, he decided to go inside to service the machine and wait for them to return. Once inside, he approached the house and knocked on the door again, but no one responded. The dog was still inside, so he didn't think much of it and went on to repair the machine. After finishing his work, he gathered his tools and left, noticing that the dog was now tied up outside. He thought that someone from the family must have returned and tied up the dog, so he went back to the house and knocked again, but got no answer. Growing suspicious, he went to their neighbor Lorenz and told him what had happened. Lorenz remembered Andreas's story and realized he hadn't seen the family in 3 or 4 days. He became worried and decided to go check on them. When Lorenz arrived at the farm, he noticed that the lights were on and all the doors were locked, except for the barn door, which was open. When he entered the barn, he was shocked to find the entire Gruber family buried under piles of hay. Each of the bodies had been decapitated, with the heads lying beside. He immediately called the police, who arrived and began investigating the crime. They discovered that the family had been dead for 4 days. On the day they died, someone had been in the barn. In a baffling sequence of events, the killer managed to lure each family member one by one into the barn, where they were killed with a pickaxe and buried under the hay. This continued throughout the day until all of them were dead. Even stranger, the police confirmed that the 4 days between the murderers and the discovery, someone had been living in the house, eating, sleeping, and even milking the cows. The neighbors confirmed this because they had seen smoke coming from the chimney, indicating that there was activity at the farm. Investigation revealed that someone had been living with the family for 6 months before killing them, then disappeared without leaving a trace. Initially, the police suspected it might have been a group of thieves who found this isolated house and decided to rob it. However, upon searching the house, they found a large box full of money that had not been touched. The money was not even hidden. Anyone could have seen it, which ruled out the robbery theory. The police then suspected that there might have been issues between the family and someone else. They interviewed the neighbors, who said Andreas wasn't a well-liked person. But even if he was unpleasant, why wasn't he the only one killed? Why kill the entire family? The police suspected the neighbor Lorenz, but confirmed that he had been at home during that time. They even took the severed heads to a fortune teller in an effort to shed some light on the crime, but he was unable to identify the killer. After extensive investigations without finding any clues, the police closed the case. 85 years later, in 2007, they reopened the case, but the available information didn't help solve the mystery, and the case remains unsolved to this day. What do you think about this crime? Was the farm haunted? Or was there really someone so cunning that they could commit such a crime without leaving any evidence? Write your thoughts in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please support us by liking the video and subscribing to the channel so you never miss any updates. Thank you.